Bonjour, comment ça va? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sophia. I'm an American living in Paris and I'm working in the fashion industry. And today I want to walk you through everything that I did, things that personally worked for me to land a job in Paris without a visa in the fashion industry and without speaking perfect French. Today, because I hate editing, I'm just going to take you through it all at once. So if there's anything you want to skip to, I'm going to try and do the timestamps down below so you can skip to those. But everything's pretty essential, what I'm going to talk about today. And they're things that really helped me in, and they can be applied to a regular job search, maybe in your home country, but specifically for looking for a job abroad, this is what I did. So the first one being that I learned French. And yes, you need to learn French if you're looking for a job in Paris, specifically in the fashion industry, unless the job specifically specifies only English speaking proficiency required. Now, the jobs that I was looking at in the fashion industry, events and PR, mostly all said English, French, fluency required for both. So yeah, you do need to start learning French, and I don't want to discourage anyone because this is 1,000% possible. It took me only 2 years of consistent practice to learn French to an advanced fluency level. I didn't study it in high school. I didn't study it in college. I didn't know any French until I was like 29 or 30. And it was really a fun process, and don't get discouraged by that. Start today, download Duolingo, learn some French. The next thing is going to be about your resume. You need to update your resume. And yes, it does need to be in French and English. So I tailored my resume to specific job postings that I saw. So if there was a position only in French, I would send out my resume in French. If it was in English, I would typically send both English and French. But it is important to have a French resume handy and updated. Now, I just used ChatGPT to translate my already English resume, and I did list at the bottom of my resume that I was fluent in English and French. This is really important, especially if the job says fluency in French and English required. And if they can tell that, if they see on your resume that you're a foreigner or American, they're going to especially want to know that. Now, second resume tip is to include a French address at the top of your resume. Now, this doesn't have to be a French address that you live in, actually, because chances are you don't actually live in Paris yet because you are trying to get a job so you can move. And you'll see as you make your way through the French move journey that it's all constant, like chicken and egg situation all the time. So we have to get a little crafty about how we manage these situations. But essentially, when I was moving, I had a sublease and I was on a tourist visa. So I was kind of just visiting the country and I was able to put that address. But if you know any friends, you could put their address, you could put an Airbnb's address, you can put a hotel's address. I don't know. But just something that shows that you're a foreigner maybe, but you have made the effort that you live in Paris, because a lot of companies, you don't want to be, discarded off the bat just because they can see that your home address is in another country. You want to give them reasons to accept you, to read through your resume, and to potentially give you an interview. So put an address in French on your resume. Also, with the address thing, put your location as Paris as well. Hi, Sophia editing here, eating some lunch, and noticed something dumb. I meant changing your location on LinkedIn. Specifically, there's the banner that shows your connections and employers where you live or where you're based. I meant change that from wherever your current location is to Paris, France, or wherever city you're trying to move. Back to the video. Thanks. Well, even when I was still living in New York, even when I was technically only visiting Paris and I didn't actually live here, I still put my location as Paris in New York. And this, again, just signals to employers that you are already in Paris and they don't need to worry about your relocation costs, because chances are, especially if it's in fashion, you will not be getting any kind of relocation. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I think there's companies that do things like that, but I feel like that's mostly big tech. So Google, Pinterest, Meta, I think those are the companies that you should go for if you are interested in potentially having some kind of relocation assistance. But I knew personally for what I did and big brands and fashion brands, they wouldn't be offering that kind of assistance. And you just want to give yourself the edge over any kind of competition that you would have here already in France. And so that really helps. My third tip would be to, if you have the means possible, and I understand that this isn't the situation for everyone, but if you have the means, to physically be in Paris. Now, I talked about this in my first video, but I had a tourist visa and I had a sublease, so I was working remotely in Paris already. So that's why I was here and I was able to take interviews, even though I technically didn't have work authorization or the ability to, I wasn't a French resident, you know? So you can come to Paris, you can stay for a period of 90 days without a visa, and you can do what I did, and you can apply and you can take interviews. And I think it will just be super beneficial because at the last minute, you can, and these are for people who are really die hard about moving to Paris, you'll be available to take interviews, and it'll really help your chances. Now, the job sites that I use to find a job are mostly LinkedIn. To be honest, I'm a pretty lazy job searcher, so it wasn't like going crazy, but it was mostly LinkedIn, which they have pretty much everything. And then there's also this really great website called Welcome to the Jungle. They have a lot of remote jobs. They had a lot of events manager jobs, but they were mostly in like tech companies. So kind of my mindset when I was looking for jobs is that I know what I've built my career path in, and yes, it's in fashion, but it's also in events. So I felt like I was kind of in a position where I could switch industries if I wanted to. Now I didn't want to, but I wanted to live in Paris more than I wanted to stay working in the fashion industry. So go into the job search, especially when moving countries, is your number one priority with an open mind, with maybe the possibility of switching industries or even switching careers in general. Like maybe I could have applied for a sales role. I don't know. I think anything that interests you, you should not keep off the table, especially if your number one goal is to move to the country and not maybe excel in a certain career path or a certain, specific area. Like be open-minded, apply to whatever tickles your fancy. The most important thing being that it's in the country that you want to live in. So what's next? Networking. Now, networking, I don't really like to do. I'll be honest. I'm very shy and I hate like the premise of going into a conversation trying to get something out of someone or feeling so fake. And so a lot of the networking that I was able to do was actually just happen naturally. So I made friends with the people I worked with, and they want to help you. And so this is also, my reputation at work in my previous jobs is being someone that's amiable, being someone who smiles, being someone who isn't difficult to work with, someone who is a team player. All those things I strive to be, and I hopefully am. And so it makes people want to help you. And so when I was reaching out to my network, and telling them like, hey, I'm looking for positions in Paris. Like, do you know of anything? If you see anything, send it my way. People were more inclined to help me. And then, of course, when I was subleasing my old apartment and I was here on my tourist visa, I did reach out to anyone and everyone I knew in Paris, and I set up coffees, I set up lunch dates, I sent my resume out, I cold emailed my resume, and I told everyone, I made it known, I shouted it from the rooftops that I was looking for a job, and that was my number one priority. So that's actually how I sort of ended up getting the job I have now. Is someone sent me a position from this really niche career website called Caliber. I'll link it down below, but really niche. I'd never heard of it before, and I applied for the job there and I got the job. So make it known, put it out there into the universe, and you never know what you'll get back. In that same vein, cold emailing hiring managers. So I did this whenever I applied for a position that I really liked or really wanted. I found on LinkedIn the hiring manager. I kind of guessed their email with a couple different formats. So if someone works at like Chanel, for example, like you put the first name, last name, first name, period, last name at chanel.com and see if what happens. And I actually use this really amazing tool called Streak where you can track the email. You can see what time someone opens it and sometimes what country or what city they open it from. And I remember I had sent out an email with my resume after applying for a job to a hiring manager, and the next day I checked it and there was like one open, and then the day after that there was like 16 views on my email, and some people were in multiple countries, so clearly she had forwarded the email and people were reading it, and I was being like considered in that moment as a potential candidate. And while I didn't end up getting that position, it just felt reassuring to know that like I was getting through to people. So I would highly encourage you to download that it's just a Chrome extension on Gmail. It really helped keep me motivated, and was good data to collect. And the last thing I'll say is use social media to your benefit. So I hate social media, well, mostly Instagram. I mean, I like it when I'm not like too in my head about it, but it's I find it quite unnecessary sometimes. But a lot of people did post job offers. A lot of people did post job offers on there sometimes that I saw. A lot of them were for pretty junior positions. And, for me in my career, I'm a little more advanced, but a lot of junior positions. And maybe I think it would be helpful if you also posted on your Instagram, like, hey, I'm looking for like a job in this city. Does anyone know of anything? I think it's always helpful to cast that wide net with your network, and you never know what could come of it. So, yeah, those are everything I did to kind of get to the point where I had an interview with my company. And the first interview was a in-person interview at their headquarters. So I went to their headquarters, and I want to touch on quickly what to wear to an interview. Now, I worked in the fashion industry, and it was interviewing for a brand, and I did not own anything from this brand. Now, I talked to a couple of people, and I was like, what should I do? Like, I want to show that I'm hype about the brand, that I care about it, but like, I don't own anything from the brand. Do I go out and buy something so I wear it to the interview? And I asked my friend who's a stylist, and she was like, no, that is way too try hard. Just go and be you and be professional, and they'll love you. So because I ultimately didn't want to spend money on a new look that I didn't need to spend, I decided to just wear non-branded clothes, professional clothes. And it was actually winter, so I ended up wearing a scarf over like any label that would end up showing. So yeah, I don't think it's 100% necessary. It depends on the brand, obviously. Don't wear like a competitor to the place you're interviewing at. I think that's just common sense, but you don't need to go decked out in the brand. So I had an in-person interview, then I had a phone interview with someone else on the team. Yes, all in French, but they were very patient with me when, sometimes I became stuck on a word and I had to switch in English. They were really cool about it. So that was awesome. And then the third call was where I got the job offer, but I didn't know if I was going to accept it because I was really like lost at that point. I didn't really know anything about being a freelance in France or what you had to do. So it was, I remember, a difficult time, and I actually didn't want to accept it at first. And I was scared, but I came to my senses, I bit the bullet, and I was able to get the visa after I accepted the offer, which I ended up hiring a law firm for called Lexity, which again, don't recommend them. I think if I had had more time, because they needed someone to start really soon, I would have done more research on different ways to get this visa that I ended up getting, the auto entrepreneur visa. So, yeah, then I got the visa, got the job, moved to France. Anyways, I want this video to be a resource for people and an example of someone who has done this big thing when she previously had no idea what the hell she was doing or what was going on. So it's possible. Keep the faith. Learn French. Download Duolingo. Do it now. And I'll see you at the next video. Bisous. Bye.